We made it. We made it, guys.
We made it.
Cheers.
I got coffee. You're drinking out of a mug with Joel on it. That's fun.
Yeah.
Feel connected.
It's really weird.
Super.
We've never really talked about our mugs.
Probably tastes better though.
Yeah, we haven't. I've got a.
Bucky's best gas station on the planet.
Is it even a gas station? I mean, the thing is like a small village.
I mean, to be fair though, what are you comparing it to? Like Texaco?
Yeah.
Chevron?
Yeah.
Not hard.
I just love good gas stations.
So did you buy that yourself?
I honestly have no idea where this came from.
Okay.
It was up in the cabinet, and I was looking for one of my Contigos. You know, the coffee mugs that's got the button on it
Yeah.
that opens it and closes it.
Yep.
And it was in the back above my microwave, and I saw it, and I reached back there and grabbed it. I was like, "Oh man, it's a Bucky's thing." So I just said, "I got to keep a mug here, so I'll keep the Bucky's mug."
Dude, I got a muggy.
I got a muggy.
That's great.
I've got one. Disney World. This one says Dad. The kids got it for me for like souvenir time. They felt bad that they were all getting souvenirs, so they bought me one with my own money, of course.
Exactly.
It's fun.
Thanks. So yeah,
I just came back from Disney World. I was at all of those parks last week. No, it's great. Chewbacca was walking through.
Yeah. I was very close to dressing up like a Padawan and just walking around.
Dude, I think we're
At
speaking
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like today.
Today.
Here?
Well, that too.
Are you a big Star Wars fan?
Yeah. Big Star Wars fan.
So if you were a Star Wars character, who are you?
Oh, man. Definitely a Jedi. Definitely. But I'd want to be my own person with my own story. Like, I don't want to be Luke.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it because of his father?
Yeah, he's got daddy issues.
He's got a lot of
that's
dad
for
issues.
Sure. But I'd want to be I want to be a Jedi. Go find my own crystal and build my own lightsaber.
Yeah. You can do that at Disney now.
Yes,
Yep.
you can.
You
We
can build
did.
your own. How much? It's like $150.
We didn't do the expensive, the real legit one. We did the one where you go and you can still build it, but it's like just the plastic parts and stuff. Somebody on YouTube built a real lightsaber. Like it's a plasma stream. And so when you hit it, literally this controlled plasma stream shoots out and maintains the strike.
Really?
So you cut through all kinds of stuff with it. Yeah, the guy's on YouTube. He takes things that you shouldn't be able to build and goes and builds them.
That's nuts. I just have a big Reese's cup.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
Just straightforward. Well, after the first episode where you spilled my coffee everywhere, it's like I'm gonna have to invest in a bigger mug.
Yeah.
And so walking around Walmart, saw it. It was full of candy because it's Valentine's. So I was like, "Here you go, babe. Here's some Reese's." She was like, "That's for your podcast, isn't it?" Immediately called me out. Like, "You can have the candy. Coffee cup's mine."
Are you a Reese's fan though?
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
Big Reese's fan.
I do like that it's a Reese's cup.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
I did.
Dude,
You should talk about
I have a weird thing that happens. Every now and then I go to take a breath and like kind of gurgles. And it doesn't end in a burp though. Much like
mine
what
did.
happened to you today.
Our guest today.
Explain to us what happened a few moments ago whenever you were teaching, Andy.
Well, one, I think it's acid reflux.
Yeah.
I drink too much coffee.
Yeah.
So I get going, and then it just snuck up on me. And when I realized, because it had been happening the whole service, but when I realized it actually came out, it's like, I have to draw attention to this.
You can't ignore.
Can't power through that one.
We're going to show you a small clip here in the podcast. We'll show you the clip of what we're talking about here. But
Power as a resource to accomplish the will of God in our lives. That snuck up on me. I think I drank too much coffee this weekend. Staying on. That was funny. I didn't get authority over that one. Oh, that could have possibly been embarrassing, but it's a whole lot better to just laugh at yourself and keep rolling.
little burpy.
Yeah. Just
Little
call
burp.
it out, laugh about it.
Yeah.
Keep going.
handled it like a pro.
You recognize the humanity in those kinds of things.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah. Everybody burps.
Everybody.
Not everybody has a microphone in their face when they burp.
Yeah, talking to however many people.
Millions.
Yeah.
Millions. And now you're talking, look at this. Now you're talking to millions of scrubscribers.
Yeah, we call our
Scrubscribers.
subscriber list or people that they're called scrubscribers.
I think they're
Scrubscribers.
Rough Riders now.
Yeah.
Rough Riders, Scrub Rider, I don't know. In case you don't know, this is Dr. Andy Yarborough. He is a psychologist from South Louisiana. How long have we known each other? I don't even know.
Oh, wow.
We met at a Bethany conference years ago.
Yeah.
Because you were doing a session talking about, I think, emotional health or emotionally healthy spirituality.
It was
type.
before 2016.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because, man, if we were at that conference, I want to say it was one of the first Bethany conferences, like when they started doing them again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was on staff from 2012 to 2016. So it was somewhere in there when we first met.
Yeah. And you were talking about a lot of things that just, a lot of times people separate psychology from Christianity almost, right? And we'll get into some of those conversations about some of that, but it's almost like two separate worlds. And we kind of see it. We're made in the image of God, and yes, we're spiritual beings, but we're also, what is it? Biophysio. Socio. Spiritual. I'm never going to say it
we
right.
got it right.
Biopsycho, socio-spiritual.
Biopsycho.
You make it sound...
Yeah,
Bio is the
biopsycho.
physio.
Yeah,
Bio
bio
is-
is the
yes.
physio.
Biopsycho.
Socio
Spiritual beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's many parts of us, and
Yeah.
we believe that that God created all those parts, and so they all matter. And so anyway, he was talking about that, and we ended up talking and struck up a conversation. He's come a couple different times to the marriage getaway last year, has come and spoken at a couple of things that we've done, and came this year. We ran it back with the marriage getaway this past weekend and stayed and taught today. And so now we're going to have a conversation about a lot of things that matter and some things that don't.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we do.
Let's do it.
So when it comes to, like, you guys have known each other for a little while. We've known you for a little bit, but like some people are just getting to know you. Maybe their first experience was you on Sunday morning or like right now watching this podcast. Shout out to the Scrubscriber Nation.
Yeah.
But like we want to do just a quick get to know you so we feel a little bit more connected to you. You know, so we've learned that you're a Jedi.
Straight up,
why
bro.
Are you laughing? So you're from Louisiana, or you're a Tiger guy.
I am a
Does that
Tiger
make you
guy.
a Saints fan also?
Man, I'm not as big of a pro football guy.
Okay.
Like I was pulling for the Bengals this year because of Joe Burrow.
So
But
you are a Tigers fan.
I'm a college guy.
So like give us baseball and football are very good for
Yep.
LSU.
Yep.
Basketball every once in a while. But right now, you've got to get rid of either LSU football or LSU baseball. Which one is it?
Wow.
Baseball. Because I'm just a big football fan.
Okay.
I love watching football.
It's nothing against baseball.
Nothing
It's
against
just
baseball.
The love for football. So you do have a special spot in your heart for Mississippi. You've said that.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit why. Why do you love Mississippi?
Well, I was born in Mississippi.
Really?
Okay.
Grew up Centerville, Mississippi. Grew up like in Byram, right outside of Jackson.
Yeah.
Don't know. Okay.
Yeah,
I know
right outside of
Jackson.
Jackson.
I know where
Okay.
you're at.
But from 5th grade on, bro, is Bogachita,
Let's go.
Mississippi.
Bogachita.
Yep.
Sounds like Louisiana. Not
Yeah.
gonna lie to you.
Bogalusa.
Bogalusa, yeah. No, the
what was in my
Bogachita,
head.
man, it's a sticks. It's about an hour south of Jackson off Interstate 55. So I grew up in the country, man, milking cows.
Really?
Did you name the cows?
Some of them.
Was his name Betsy?
Old Bessie, yeah. Old Bessie.
If you were at the marriage getaway, you know what we're talking about.
So what brought you to
Wow.
Louisiana? You're born here.
I was born, so my wife and I have been married 20 years. We have 3 kids, 14, 12, and 9.
Nice.
And we lived in Nashville for a year. We went to Mississippi College, went to Nashville for a year for Mel. Mel's a nurse practitioner. So she's one of our prescribers for our practice and helps run the practice and stuff. But we were in Nashville for a year and then Virginia for 4 years for me. But I got matched at LSU at the Student Health Center, and they did a consortium, so I had to wrap my schooling up at the Student Health Center, and then I did some work in Jackson at a forensic hospital and all that fun stuff. And then we stayed. Maggie was born 6 months into that, and
That's home.
Baton Rouge home now, bro.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
That's awesome.
That's cool. So
Yeah.
like we're getting to learn Dr. Andy and even your family.
Yep.
How long have you been in business? So like what's professional life look like? Give us just a quick snapshot of that.
So school, I left psychology full-time to go on staff at our church for a few years, and then went full-time. We started the Well Clinic in 2015, and then went full-time in 2016, and have just been rolling ever since. And so we've got the Well Clinic. We've got the Well Resources, which the website for that's mywellco.life. A lot of free resources. That's kind of the landing page for what we're able to offer. And then Rhythms is a part of that, myrhythms.life. And do a lot of coaching work. We've got, so yeah, it's just kind of expanded from there. So I do a lot of clinical work, a lot of coaching, work with organizations.
Yeah. And you and your wife work together, right?
Yes.
How's that?
It's good overall. She would laugh about that. We've had a lot of learning opportunities over the past few years, because one of the things about leadership is I don't think people talk a ton about leading well together and what that actually looks like. Understanding your roles, staying in your lane. There's a great book called "If You Want It Done Right, You Don't Have to Do It Yourself." A little bitty short book, and really it's about delegation. But the key part is who has authority to do what.
Right.
And so having conversations about what that looks like, and then we just started bringing in some key team members to take on clinical director roles. So it's been good, man. A lot of learning.
Yeah.
Whenever you talk about roles, did y'all sit down? Was it like before you had conversations before and determined those things, or was it like after you're in it, you start realizing, oh, we've got to figure this little segment out? I think sometimes it's like we hear somebody say something like that, and it's like, oh, you know,
have
you
it all
knew that was
planned out.
Yeah, and then we'll start. Was it kind of like as you went, you figured stuff out?
It's probably a little both.
Yeah,
a little bit of both. Because there's stuff that happens. I mean, once you get into things, if you wait to start something until you got it all together, you're never going to start it.
Yeah,
and it's like the book. Just
do
something, right?
Yeah.
It's like, man, a lot of leadership is about building the ship as you take off the runway. And if you wait until everything's perfect, you never do anything. So you got to get that thing in the air, man. And I think for us, it's figuring out, like, we've switched seats in the pilot part, or, gone back and realized somebody's got to clean the toilets. Very
important.
It's like, hey, we
got
got
my role. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm a good toilet cleaner, bro. Work that thing. I think it just figures stuff out as you go.
Yeah. One thing that I love about listening to you and even just having conversations with you is, I mean, you're extremely knowledgeable. There's no doubt about it. You've got the education to back that. But and listening to the message from this weekend, sometimes extremely knowledgeable and intellectual people are really hard to understand. Yeah. It's so lofty. I think God's gifted you, honestly, to be able to intake and retain a significant amount of knowledge and practice, but then communicate at not just an understandable level, but an effective level. Is that something that you just stumbled into? Like teaching, I mean, that's typically that's not what you sought to do. Is that correct? Or like, how did you find yourself in roles like teaching on Sunday morning?
I don't know. Man, so I'm a trench guy.
Yeah.
Like I'm just in the trenches with people. And it's been a little while now, but we felt like God said, listen, any opportunities that you get from a platform, whether that's like this, whether it's from an actual platform, standing on teaching, or, whether it's social media stuff, any of that, any opportunities we get from a platform will come from our time in the trenches. It's just a word we got. And so my goal has never really been to shape a platform for the platform's sake. And so I think teaching just has slowly become a part of that, where, you're in the trenches with people, you're living this stuff out. And dude, there's all kind of stuff in the trenches. And so you got to learn to nuance things and, like, take concepts and break it down in a way where people get it as you walk with them through that process. So I think you start doing that, people start coming in, sitting in chairs, and they're like, hey, I think my team could benefit. And so we start talking to teams, and then from there it goes to this, and then this happens, and this happens. And a quick word, man, I think a lot of times people look at those platforms, but they despise what it takes to get there and do it well. And so we're like, hey, I'm called to preach. And it's like, well, the word calling means invitation. And you got to understand the nature of the invitation and the preparation that it's going to take to do that thing well. So just because you're called doesn't mean you need to be doing it yet. What does it mean to prepare for that, dude? I'm 43. When I hit 40, I felt like I stepped on the front porch of the rest of my life. I stepped on the front porch of my calling. I feel like I've been in a preparation season for 20 plus years.
Wow.
So I think it just kind of happened.
What would you say to the 25-year-old that says, this is what I want to be? Or is it just the same message you just gave?
Well, for me, this journey started for me when I was 19. So we used to play basketball. So I'm on a mission trip playing basketball in India. We're playing their national teams, their junior national teams, their universities. We're doing basketball clinics.
This is a mission trip?
Mission trip, yeah.
Sign me up for that
Yeah,
one.
for
Yeah,
real.
great.
I
Bro, it
would
was
like
a great
to go
trip,
for
bro.
that.
Yeah.
But because we were Americans with the basketball, the Indian believers there took us to the craziest work. Like I saw the human trafficking industry with my eyes for the first time. 19. I was a biology major. I come home, almost fell out of college. I just couldn't pull it. Almost failed. Like dropped out. Failed out. Yeah.
like out a window?
Yeah.
I thought you said fell, like F-E-L-L.
My man's got balance issues.
Wow.
Yeah. It messed me up, man.
All right.
That curry. Had some bad goat milk.
Dude, you gotta watch that goat milk.
You
It'll
do,
get
bro.
you.
I'm not going to lie. You were talking
It'll
about
get you.
basketball and you said Curry, so I'm picturing Steph Curry.
I
I'm like,
thought Steph Curry. It took me a second. I'm like,
That's what kicked off a journey of curiosity for me. And so if you're in your early 20s, it's like, hey, it's great to start giving language to a sense of purpose and mission, but there's things we can be doing right now that are just meaningful for the meaning's sake. Like develop your character. Like get involved in ministry. You don't have to say yes to everything all the time later on, but learning what you don't want to do is as important early on as learning what you do. And so I think you just get in there and roll. And there are things that are general strategies that help, like values-based living. Get a core set of 5 to 8 values that are really meaningful to you and live those things out. Holistic self-care. Taking care of your body, your soul, your relationships, and your spirit. Those are strategies that are going to help with any mission, no matter what you do. Educating yourself is just going to help. And that doesn't have to be formal education. Just get in there and learn something.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, you said calling earlier. Calling is an invitation. I think another way that people look at calling is they're gifted in an area, so therefore I'm called. Like I'm called, and it's like, well, you're gifted. And, but you have to develop to sustain that.
Right.
Like you might have a natural gift in an area to do something, whatever that be, but you have to grow in order for that thing to become a valid, I mean, if it's a career, if we're talking like that, for it to be a valid career path, you've got to develop that gift. Whatever it is, there's still work involved with that to develop those things. Maybe it's character that will actually help you in that gifting to sustain whatever that is. Your character's got to grow. You got to grow in those things. And so I was just thinking about a young person. You might be really good at something, but it doesn't mean that it's that natural gift is always just going to be able to sustain you. You've got to grow in that natural gift. You got to take it to the next level.
That's great.
Yeah. And if you don't see giftings as strategies to accomplish mission, you'll think your gifting is your mission.
Yep.
And you'll stay in it when
That's
God's
awesome.
actually calling you to a next level of it. And giftings are never the mission. Right. Like my mission is we guide people into hope, wellness, and life. And again, I want to be careful saying this because it doesn't mean that what I went through and I'm no longer doing, that what I'm doing now is better than. It's just my journey. For example, song worship. There are people who are called to lead song worship and they're called to do it for their lives. And that's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. We led song worship for years. Now I use psychology as the way to lead people in worship.
Right.
I help people worship through trauma, worship through pain, worship through. It doesn't make that better or less than music. I still love song worship, and song worship equipped me to be able to do that. But if I thought, no, song worship I'm good at it. I'm gifted at it. We're developing it. I've got to do this for the rest of my life. I could then take what God's given me as a gift and hang on to it so tightly that I don't see the actual nature of the invitation.
Mm-hmm. The mission of it.
The mission of it.
So we talk a lot about purpose and function. And in this conversation, the purpose is the mission. And what we've called function is like a gifting.
Yeah.
So I have a purpose in life. As believers, we have a purpose, obviously. It's to glorify God in all things. And that's like the the purpose. And so people get caught up in the function, the
Yes.
role,
Yep.
the gifting or whatever.
That's great.
That's the thing you're putting your hand actually on
Right.
a lot of times,
Yeah.
you know, but you're using that tool or that function or whatever to accomplish the purpose.
Yeah.
So I led worship for many, many years. And I about 3 years ago now, I started losing my voice. And I mean, there was like a year, it was maybe even over a year, I couldn't lead worship. I could sing one song and my voice was done. Well, like that was a way that I would express worship to God first and foremost. I mean, you know, if you're an artist, you there's a part of you that you express through that function, right? But it's something deep inside of you that you're expressing. And I could no longer do that, even in the crowd, like just in worship. I could only sing so much, and I'd have to just stop singing because my voice, I'm hurting, my vocal cords are getting strained. It started affecting me on a deep level because I had identity attached to it.
Yeah.
It's like a micro identity crisis.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
So do you see the same type of thing take place in people's lives? I'm thinking about like that moment that a stay-at-home mom sends her kids to school.
Yes.
Right.
Is it the same thing?
Yes.
How would you speak to that?
So we've talked about this a little bit, talked about it at church, but we've got to realize that we have different parts of who we are. And you want to develop multiple identity aspects. Psychology would say, listen, you have a core self, but you've got to develop multiple parts of who you are. So if one part struggles, then you're not, all your eggs aren't in that one basket, right? And so, yes, being a mom is amazing, but it's a temporary. Being a mom's not temporary.
A season,
but the season of your child being there is
Yeah.
a temporary season, and you're actually raising them to release them. And so, having a purpose in that and knowing where this is going is really, really important. Otherwise, you get so bogged down in the grief that I don't know who I am anymore. So it's about expanding the sense of identity and skill sets and exploration, engaging life in a way that's fun again, waking up the wonder again.
Wow.
Not just the grind of life, but
a lot of people just in the world that we live in, it appears that those words don't exist in their life. Like fun, wonder, like the joy of just being and being around each other. And common reasons are pace of life.
Yeah.
You know, the words are margin, it's different season. Like, how do you kickstart those? Okay, so hey, I just really can't have fun right now. Why? Because I don't have time. My schedule. Blah, 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 blah. How do you kickstart something like that? I'm thinking about people that are watching this right now. I'm just thinking of people that have heard this and like, I want that. I want a fun. I want that wonder. I want what you're talking about. But how do you actually do it in today's world?
You have to invite yourself into it. You got to give yourself permission to try again. I mean, this is unscripted, right? So I think, you know, being stabilized is good. You need to be. It's hard to thrive if aspects of your life aren't stable. But I think you have to see fun as non-negotiable for well-being. So if you want to foster well-being in your life, fun is actually non-negotiable. You have to have it. And the thing about fun is you don't have to feel it to foster it.
Explain that statement.
All right. You don't have to feel fun to foster it. Fun can be as much of an attitude as it is an activity or an emotional state. And attitudes, the anatomy of every attitude that we have are, if you think about a triangle, your thought life, what you think, your behavioral tendencies, so not what you should do, but what you want to do or actually do, your emotional states, and your body. Because what we do with our bodies communicates something to our souls, right?
Yep.
If I'm all hunched over and I can't, versus, hey guys, I'm open, whatever, that communicates something to my soul. It's very, very important. That is the anatomy of every attitude we have. So when I say fun, it's not just like, oh, I just don't feel like doing it. It's like, no, I'm going to value fun, which means if I'm going to choose to value this, I'm going to be willing to sacrifice for it.
Mm-hmm.
Which comes into like priorities.
It's a priority. Yeah, 100%. And it's like, listen.
Well, I think if we start with each phase of what you just said, body language.
Yeah.
Like that's what you said. I think of it as body language. I know that I'll just use church. So obviously in what I do, it's like every service, every prayer service, every Sunday morning service, every rehearsal, every small group, every single time that I'm in one of those settings. Many times I'm in more of a leadership role, right? Like I'm facilitating that environment. And so because that responsibility is on me, it doesn't matter how I feel. I'm going to be present.
Yeah.
I'm going to have my eyes wide open. When people walk in, I'm going to give high fives. Hey man, what's up? I'm going to instigate that. I'm going to set that environment. I'm not going to let the environment. How weird would it be if somebody came to my small group, right? They walk in and I just sit on the couch and just like, that's just weird.
Yeah.
Right? Well, that's, whenever we picture that, we're like, I would never do that. I invite somebody to my house. But it's like, you can make that decision to be like that. And I'm not just talking about being extroverted. I'm talking about making a decision to have fun or whatever. But it literally, you can create that attitude, that mindset physically.
Fun actually helps our brains develop because it promotes the latent learning process. So I'm not thinking about the things I'm trying to figure out. I'm focused on something else, and it gives my brain a chance to rest and work on it in the background. Yep. And then you have these light bulb moments. Those light bulb moments aren't coming out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. You've just given your brain a chance to process it at an unconscious level. But the other thing about fun is when you start to enjoy something, right? Or get engaged in it. Fun is characterized by enjoyment and engagement. Engagement is when you get so involved in an activity, you kind of lose track of time.
Yeah.
Right? You may not feel joy doing it, but you feel it on the back end of it. So doing things that are fun are about engagement and being present and joy and, doing things that wake up a sense of wonder. And it doesn't mean they're not sometimes it could be hard. Like we went on a hike and it was a great, great hike, but coming down, my knee was hurting. But if I talk about the hike, I'm not like focused on my knee hurting. I'm focused on how much fun I had. Right. My kids laughing, having a good time,
So is that where hobbies come in?
Yes.
Like what's, because I know a lot of people that if you say, hey, what do you do for fun? What's like a hobby? I ain't got time for a hobby. It's just some would even say my kids are my hobby. And that in one sense is positive, but can also not be positive. I don't know. I hear that's where a lot of like, especially middle-aged people are. It's like, no, what do you do for fun and who do you have fun with? It's been a question that we've been asking, like we ask quite often and what you're doing is you're actually giving
language to the question and meaning to.
And it's like, well, no. So what place do people, do hobbies come in for people?
I think it's a part of it. Kids can absolutely be a part of your fun. And I think that's great. I love hanging out with my kids and my wife and going at their athletic stuff and like talking smack to the other kids.
Hey, man.
The 9-year-old, get that out of here, sucker. It's just amazing. I have a great time doing this stuff like that. But I think finding hobbies are important because a lot of times they help us continue to develop, especially or rest, check out in healthy ways. Mm-hmm. Honestly, our brains rest when they're focused. Rest isn't just about sleep, it's about focus. And so if I'm doing a hobby, I'm engaged in that thing. My brain's actually resting to a degree. So getting involved in things, and if you struggle to remember what you enjoy, start exploring stuff.
Right.
What did you used to enjoy? Try stuff out. A lot of communities have classes you can go join. Go learn how to weave a basket.
That might be something that that's not fun.
Podcast trip?
Podcast trip for basket weaving.
Dude, that's the name of our subscribers, the basket weavers.
Oh my God.
It's basically find things to do or people to be with that are fun, that you enjoy, that you engage with and enjoy. And that could be a plethora of things. I didn't say kids like they would not be a good thing. That's not what I meant by that. But because I was like, wait.
But they're not.
Instead of like, some people say they're kids. It's like, no, that's not what I meant. But it's like Because I really do. For some people, maybe in this season, you take a mom that's at home with their kids all day. It's like maybe that's not the thing to find.
Yeah,
like that's not. Yeah. It sounds bad. I'll just say it for the moms. It's like it doesn't sound fun to be home all day Saturday again with all the kids. It's like that's not fun. I love my kids. You almost like can't say it because it sounds like you hate your kids. That's not it. But and that's kind of what I was thinking. Is like, but what do you do that's different than what you do on the regular for your brain to literally attach to something else for healing or for growth or for learning or for whatever? It's why, like when I go to Disney World, I don't like going to Disney World. Okay, I don't like it's
hot take.
Oh god,
hot take,
dude. It's like it's a lot. However, you can't help but think about exactly what you're doing. Like you're going to the next ride, you're going to the next, that you can't process about work or stressful things because you're doing something all the time. So your brain is resting, even though your body is not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
30,000 steps later. So you like to do fun things. We know you like to hike. So honestly, those are the only. I've heard you like music, basketball, and trails. Like, what does Andy like to do for fun, and how do you feed that?
Yeah, I'm a big science fiction fan. Love science fiction, fantasy. I don't get to play video games a lot anymore, but if I can get one game that I really enjoy, like I dropped 150-something hours into Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Yeah,
nice.
Over the course of like 3 years. It ain't like I'm doing this in a month. You know, it's like it'll be so long.
That's normal.
That'd be really weird.
It'll be bad.
Samuel, my son came into our bedroom last night and he said, "Guys, I got to let you know something." And like he was like asking us, "What is?" He says, after I can't remember the amount of time, he says, "I am now officially a master prestige in Call of Duty." And he explained what that took. That it's prestiging, I think, 11 times to level 50. He's like, "So now I'm officially a master prestige." So like, will you know me as master prestige, Samuel?
Affirm me.
That's amazing.
I think he ended it with a bow and walked away.
How old is he?
12.
Yes, indeed. I love that stuff. And so I like science fiction, space stuff, fantasy stuff. Big Lord of the Rings fan.
You said you're a big space guy and all that. So we've had a conversation recently that we'd love to
go there. Please,
you said it. Extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
Like, not.
He's like, I'm ready for this. I've been watching.
Oh, let's do this.
Beings like space, expanse of space, one universe, giant galaxies all over the place. What's your take on, is there potentially life out there?
Yes.
Yes.
My man.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
We just become best friends?
Yeah. We just became best friends.
You like guacamole?
Yeah. I 100%.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'm open to the very real possibility that it exists in our structured 3-dimensional space.
Right.
Right. But there are a number of dimensions that exist, and the spiritual world is interdimensional. So I think a lot of the life that I tend to believe in, can it exist in our current universe? I think yes. I think God's a creator. He's always creating. If you've ever read any of Michael Heiser's stuff, The Unseen Realm, like that stuff is so fascinating because it's even cooler than what I could imagine. God and the council and what that actually means. But man, when you talk about interdimensional beings,
as far as dimensions go, the last that I heard, there was like they believe, and I say they very ambiguously, but it was like 11 or 13 different dimensions.
I'd say 12.
12?
Yeah.
12? Okay.
But I could be wrong.
No,
I don't think you are.
That's the last. Right. That's the last time.
12 is a good number numerology wise.
Yeah. Well, I said 11 and 13, so that's right.
Yeah.
But it's somewhere up in there.
Yeah.
And the way that I've heard it put is, and we mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but if you were to take like a 2-dimensional, like a cartoon, take like a 2-dimensional world, and what would it be like for that cartoon character if a 3-dimensional object like entered into that 2-dimensional world? How would that 2-dimensional cartoon character explain that? And there was a teacher many years ago that did the example of, he took his ring off and say my hand, like the cartoon characters on my hand, And if this ring was to go through that world,
Yeah.
right? Well, as it enters in, it'd see a dot, and then it'd see 2 dots, and then it'd see 2 dots spread apart, and then it'd see 2 dots closer
Right.
together, 1 dot and gone. And that cartoon character would be like, "Whoa, did you see that?" And be like, the other cartoon character's like, "What are you talking about?" And it's like, it was like a dot, and it was like 2 dots farther apart. It was 2 dots, and then it came back together, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that whole idea, and that one cartoon character might say, "Man, I feel like it was from another world or another dimension." And whenever we see that, we feel so much more intelligent than that 2-dimensional object.
Yeah.
But it's like the spiritual realm.
Yep.
It's like a 4th dimension, or
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And so, anyway, yeah, I mean, I don't know. What other thoughts are lurking around in there?
I mean, are these balloons that are floating around, are those UFOs?
No, I think they're probably just China.
Is that simple?
Yeah, but I do think that a lot of the objects that we see in the sky that probably disappear,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think you're looking at interdimensional objects.
This is
It's
awesome.
crazy.
I mean,
So
is
what
awesome.
what is your favorite conspiracy theory?
Mm.
They're not have to be aliens, but
Ooh,
yeah.
I don't keep up a ton with conspiracy theory stuff. I have family that did a lot of the QAnon and get into government stuff.
Nice.
But the thing about a lot of that QAnon stuff is what we used to. Here's the thing about conspiracy theories: is a lot of the things that we thought were conspiracy theories are actually true.
Yes.
And so, and a lot of that's coming out right now, and so it's like, hey, I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
I don't think I have a favorite one. I'm not a favorites guy anyway.
Yeah.
But it's just you do try to keep up with, like, right, this is what people are saying. I'm going to hold it loosely, but there's got to be some kind of truth in this.
Yeah.
And
it's like where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
You know, but then sometimes they're like, there's smoke, and you're like for instance, I saw a picture of a church this past week, and they put, so you got the Asbury revival that's you know kind of been going on. Apparently, I've been at Disney, so a lot's changed in the last week, but it's gotten confusing. But there was a church somewhere that somebody went into the church like on a Sunday morning or whatever. The person took a picture, and what it is there's like a fog in the room. And dude, it's a really eerie looking fog. And they took a picture, and they just went on and on about, like, you know, God is moving in America. And look, we went to church, and man, there's this cloud. Da, 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 da. Well, right when I saw the picture, I didn't even read anything. I knew exactly what it was. Yeah. What happens is if you leave a haze machine on in an auditorium that has no AC going at all, the haze, like, it kind of just goes into a certain part of the air. It, like, not all the way up top, not all the way down. It, like, hovers. Something to do with the temperature and atmospheric pressure. And it creates this layer, and it's really ominous looking. But right when I saw it, I was like, oh, somebody left the haze machine on for the last couple of days.
That's true.
And there's no movement, air movement at all, and nothing, no fan comes on.
That's
anyway,
a Shekinah cloud.
They were like, oh my gosh.
That's exactly it.
I'm going to jump up in that.
You're going to move
swim in the Shekinah cloud.
Like, that's not, no.
I saw Micah's post too. That's crazy.
Oh no.
It was me.
Here's the thing.
Conspiracy.
Anytime somebody's like, oh, that's a conspiracy theory, or people are calling it conspiracy, especially the media, I'm always wondering why they're calling it a conspiracy theory and not doing their homework.
I'm 100% with you.
That's the thing about conspiracy theories. I have no idea what that has to do with the Shekinah cloud that we just talked about. But like,
what's something recently that's made you mad? We call it these hot takes.
Yeah.
Something culturally, something you saw, just anything out there that really, really fired you up.
The thing that really is firing me up right now is how culture is takes language and deconstructs it to where there's no longer any form of objective truth or reality, and we just call anything.
One example of that. Can you think of one example?
I'm probably going to get hammered for this. So let me say this disclaimer. People can have all kinds of experiences. I'm not knocking that at all. In fact, I do a lot of work with people who have all painful experiences in life or experiences that are outside of the norm, and I walk with people on an ongoing basis. But the just disconnect from reality to say that you can take the word gender and sexuality and use it however you want and conform those things to your own experiences and then demand that other people accept the reality of those things. It's like, hey, listen, I realize that people have all kinds of experiences regarding their understanding and how they feel, and those are real feelings for people. I have no desire to invalidate that. But then to go and take a next level and to say that you have to, I can identify however I want and take language and use it in any way that I want.
Right.
And then we have to accept that as a reality is really frustrating to me. Yeah. And I'm frustrated at my field. I think psychology is going down a path of like, hey, it doesn't even like talk about unscripted. Let's take gender reassignment surgery for children.
Right.
Our brains don't finish developing until we're 25.
Right.
Our prefrontal cortex. Why in God's name would we do anything to a child at a physiological level? And listen, I am validating that people and children have different experiences. Don't do physical surgery on them because we're identifying, like, it is the opposite of what we're trying to do as psychologists.
Right.
And so it's like, hey, I'm suicidal. Well, if that's how you feel, it's okay. Go do it. No psychologist would say do that.
There's an article. So we actually taught on exactly what you're talking about back in Loving Logic in September. It was the logic of sexuality. There's a John Hopkins article that we referred to, and they said in the same way that somebody who's anorexic, or bulimic, they said in the same way that somebody who has that type of mental, sickness that's going on, mental illness, and you don't treat that by saying, yeah, go ahead and just don't eat, in the same way that you just talked about somebody that might be suicidal, is with someone who's struggling with their gender, we don't prescribe, hey, go and have a surgery to remove parts of you.
Yeah.
It's but that's where the mindset would be that you would be thinking that person has what we would call gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
And that's a term that is it's very controversial, and that's so it's really about whether or not somebody who's struggling with the gender is actually dealing with an illness or not. And so what would be your thoughts around that?
Well, the gender dysphoria is a descriptive term. So the fact that and that's the thing, a lot of our culture takes descriptive terms and converts it into character attacks and assassinations.
Yeah.
So for me to say someone's dealing with gender dysphoria, it just means there's a dysphoric feeling regarding your biological sex, what you feel about your gender, right? Because culture has distinguished the two.
That's the huge part that, whenever we taught, spent a lot of time making sure that people understood, whether you agree with it or not.
Yeah,
it is what it is. There's biological sex, and then there's gender identity, and then there's gender expression.
Right.
And those are different conversations.
Yeah. And I don't really have a problem differentiating those experiences and language.
Exactly.
I think it gives more of an opportunity to talk about what people are experiencing.
Yes.
Listen, I know people may see this and disagree. Because we believe sin impacts all of who we are, I think people can have all kinds of experiences that need to be acknowledged and validated, but I don't have to agree with the meaning being assigned to what those experiences actually mean.
Okay.
So, in other words, I can validate that someone is in a male body, but feels feminine in gender, which, by the way, on a side note, I don't think the church does a really good job. Did you open up a can here? I'm sorry, or I opened it up. But I don't think the church does a really good job of articulating a biblical masculinity and femininity.
Right.
And the overlap of what those look like. I think all men have feminine characteristics
100%.
to a degree, and we need to express some of those, where women have masculine, and there's a fluidity there, but there is a true masculinity and femininity that needs to be articulated. So people who have, more men who have more feminine qualities, or children who are male who have more feminine qualities, that doesn't mean they're transsexual.
Right.
It means they just have more feminine qualities, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that.
Right.
So there's a lot going on there, but I don't mind the expression of things. My frustration is that there is a demand that you agree, and not validate the experience, but that you agree with the meaning being assigned to that experience. And listen, if your experience, here's the bottom line. If your experience is going to be the sole source of meaning for you, oh my God.
Yep.
Yeah.
help us, because where does that end?
Yeah.
As a Christian, I will validate your experience, but I will take a step back and say there is something transcultural and transgenerational that assigns meaning. And whether I like it or not, it's the scriptures. And I'm going to lean into that. So I think it's this sort of wholehearted, like, oh, I'm going to accept who you are. What? Just because I'm disagreeing with the meaning being assigned to that doesn't mean I'm transphobic.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I can't have empathy and walk with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I'm not, what does this searching through the relationship between the masculine and the feminine in terms of its expression? But guys, there's two biological sexes, period.
Right.
And it's been that way through all of history. That's not changing now, whether we say that because we feel differently about it or not.
Well, you said sin has broken everything. One thing that we said in our teaching was that our expression, our identity, and our attraction, those three things in the garden, if we go back to like the beginning, those three things were completely aligned. They were perfect. And whenever sin entered in, those things, those deep parts of us were fractured. Yep. And so now that spectrum, that's out there, that spectrum, all of us, man, it hits differently.
Yeah.
And to expect everybody to feel exactly the same way about all of that is unrealistic. But like you said, it doesn't matter how I feel. It's what does the word say is pleasing to God. And as believers, we submit those things. Look, I'm a male, and we say this. I mean, I'm just pretty transparent because somebody's got to say it very openly. I'm a male, okay? I'm a guy, and I'm married to one woman, obviously. But I am not just attracted to that one woman. I am attracted, like I still have eyes. You know what I'm saying? So I still see. But biblically, God has put parameters around my sexual attraction and how I can display that and express that with who and how. And so therefore, I surrender that attraction and I am committed to one woman. So no matter whether you're attracted to men or women or whatever, there still comes a point for believers who, believe in God and who want to live in accordance to how he desires them to live, that you have to die to certain things in your life in order to honor him.
That's that lordship side.
Yeah.
Lordship. For you, if someone, that's just in a relationship with you, comes to you who's dealing with some of these things, or maybe somebody comes to meet with you and they're struggling with this, what do you go to first to try to help them?
Yeah. The irony of this is that I'm actually more open to allowing people to walk their own journeys than people who are forcing the ideology on them.
Right.
Because as a Christian, my goal is not to force anyone so if people come to me and they have sexual identity, gender identity, or gender expression concerns, the first step is not to really talk about those things, but to lean in and talk about, hey, let's just figure out who you are as a person, as a whole person. So there's a lot of other parts to who you are. What does that look like? Your sexuality and gender expressions, gender identity are some of those, and they're very important. But let's take a step back. The second thing is, where do you want to get your meaning from? Because you can have your experience can be the sole source of your meaning. Culture can be a source of meaning. And if you want that to be true for you, I'm not going to argue you out of it. But if you're coming in and you're talking about, if you say to me, hey, I'm a Christian, then the scripture is a source of meaning.
Right.
And it needs to be considered. Where does the scripture actually stand in relationship to culture? Where does it stand in relationship to your own experiences? And really help people walk those things out, where if they decide whether the experience changes or not, which a lot of times the experience changes, especially if people are younger and experiencing this stuff, they don't have the same experiences as they get older into the mid-20s, 30s. It changes. So my goal is to help people come to terms with not just the experiences they have, but the meaning being assigned to those experiences. And as Christians, the question isn't just, what do I think about Jesus? But a large question as we walk out our faith is, what do I do with the scriptures? And people don't bring in that conversation the source of meaning. And so I want to point people and help them ask the right questions and be a guide for them to ultimately, if they are able to make that decision, I'm not the one forcing it, which makes it more sustainable for them, more ingrained in who they are, for them to go and say, listen, I know I'm having these experiences, but I want to stand on a larger transcultural, transgenerational framework of what the scriptures actually say about who God is as my creator and what that means for me.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people would say, no, man, you got to just take them back to the word. And we can absolutely do that and bring in pastoral people to do that. But in that, as a psychologist, I want people, when they go, no, you know what? I know I'm having these experiences, but I want to base who I am on the scriptures. And honestly, some of it's terms too. How do you clearly define these things? I had a young man come in my office and he said he was gay and wanted to work through what it meant to be gay. I was like, well, okay, well, what does gay mean to you? And what he starts articulating is he wears tight feminine clothing.
Right.
I was like, time out, bro. Time out. Are you sexually attracted to men? He said, no. I said, okay, buddy, we're not like...
It's a different conversation.
This is a different conversation. So I think even clarifying the terms on what this stuff means is so important.
And that's what we spent, again, referring to it a lot, I know, but that's what we talked about in Loving Logic.
Yep. What's getting tossed into toxic masculinity now is not, it's like, guys, this is not toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
We're not like, let's keep toxic masculinity just unhealth. Period. We all agree this is not good. And I've got a lot of thoughts right now. And I feel like I have just spewed them everywhere. I guess that's the point of being unscripted.
Oh, yeah.
But
It's true.
But for me, the big picture is, listen, language is very important. We've got to know and the same thing happens, like people call things racism. It's like, well, what's the difference between racism, prejudice, and bias? How do we know progress is being made? What does racism actually mean? And because if we don't understand the terms, how do we know we're making progress and how do we know we're dealing? That's why we have diagnoses, right? But you'll have people who are bringing in the DEI curriculums or all sorts of stuff, and they don't even know how to define the terms.
Right.
Well, because they all mean something different today. It's what's truth. This really comes down to what's the source of, is truth relative?
Yep.
Is there absolute truth? Like it all kind of centers around those ideas. And when you can take one word and make it mean 4 different things, let alone, hey, what do you think it means? What do you think it means? And
my truth.
And then because of all truth is based on personal experience,
right?
What is truth?
Complete subjectivity, relativity. It leads to chaos and confusion and division and all these things. And
I think that's the whole point of it, by the way, is to lead to chaos and confusion, like tear it all down. Like I don't think it's an accident that we're at where we're at. I think it's very constructed. Because
if there's no structure, then I can identify and do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Or whatever I feel like is true about me.
Yeah. And force you to accept it.
Yes.
Yeah.
A concern of mine with that phrase that we just said is what I'm seeing, because I work a lot with teenagers. It's just in my responsibilities in our church is I oversee our student ministries. And something I'm seeing is because of the cultural shift in a lot of ways, it's turning young people against parents or the older generation, saying either you're a fool, you don't know what these words mean, and instead of living, the way we believe we were created to live, that generations influencing the next generation is this language, because words are being redefined. Teenagers are saying this, and parents or leaders are hearing this word, and they're using their own interpretation of what that word means. And it's a communication miss. And this generation doesn't know how to speak to this generation. This generation doesn't know how to speak to this generation. Like, I'm done throwing parents under the bus. It's not their fault. This is the world that we live in. They don't know how to speak to them. They don't know how to communicate to them. So we've got a giant miss. A bridge has collapsed, and we're living in this world now that says, what do we do? And it's a phenomenon. And I do believe what you just said, it is constructed. I think it's constructed by the enemy, though. I think it's a plan of the enemy to steal, kill, and destroy. And he's very patient. He'll wait an entire generation to destroy things.
Yeah. And I think what you just said is realizing, like, this may make me frustrated, or I may get frustrated with this, even angry with this. But my goal is not to get mad at people
Right.
Like I want to be sure I'm loving and connecting with people, even if they have different experiences than me, believe different things than me. The goal is to be able to be hospitable and how my presence is safe for people. But our culture has a hard time distinguishing engaging an idea. They will interpret that as attacking their character. And so a lot of it is what you said, no, we're going to keep the true enemy.
Yeah.
And then work as much as we can to connect and communicate.
Dude, that was a heck of a hot take.
That was a big hot take.
That was great.
Big hot take.
He gets mad at Starbucks. That's his hot take. Were you comfortable with what you just said? Like that being part of podcast?
Yeah, post it up, bro.
Okay.
I don't want to make statements that unnecessarily offend people.
Right.
That's not my heart, right?
It's not our heart either.
I'm not interested in making people mad, or
we're not trying to pick fights.
I'm not trying to pick a fight.
No.
I'm not trying to commit people. I'm simply saying, listen, there's a framework that I have as a psychologist. I'm probably way more open to having conversations and experiences and the fluidity of things than a lot of people in the church are comfortable with.
Yeah.
Where the church is at overall is like, okay, do we actually talk about these things that are the hottest topic that you could talk about that is going to potentially bring division or pain to people?
Yeah.
And so one or two things or three things happen. It's almost like fight, flight, or freeze. Mm-hmm. It's either I'm going to fight it and I'm just, I'm going to take a stance against it, or I'm going to remain extremely neutral and say nothing about it.
Yep.
And or I'm going to go with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so you do nowadays. You have splits. Although you get the Methodist Church split in half over this stuff. I mean, let's just be Andy Stanley and the stuff that he's saying the last few weeks. That's been a long time coming.
Yep.
I don't know what he said.
He's basically it's just affirming.
Yeah.
Affirming, and he's been kind of leaning into progressive thoughts for many years, and it's just full on and a progressive Christian type of approach to the Bible and to sexuality, and you know what it is? It's like, okay, if I sit with someone who's going through these hard issues, and I listen to their experience, and I then try to wrap scripture around their experience, I can make the scripture say whatever I want.
Yep.
So as pastors, it's like, okay, now we're going back to scriptural, like biblical interpretation. And the way that you interpret scripture determines how you're going to teach it, and then how you're going to implement that doctrine into your methods.
Yep.
And then, and for influential teachers, if I can go to as extreme as possible, you got like your Mark Driscolls and your Andy Stanleys, and if you're into the church world, then these guys, they matter because they have big platforms and they affect the thought processes of many pastors and many people in the body of Christ. And there's a plethora of other big teachers out there. And so, but for us, it's like, okay, how much do I want to say? Do I really want to be exposed in a way that can all of a sudden you get canceled social media, and then you have to deal with all the fallout of that. And so there's a lot of people who are like, I'm not going to say anything about it.
Yeah.
Here's the fallout though. The young people in your church are they're not equipped to know what they're supposed to believe. Yep. What's the logic behind what we believe?
Yeah.
What does the Bible actually say about transgender or homosexuality or bisexuality or anything? What does the Bible say? And so if we're not saying it, not ranting and raving, but just explaining and saying, no, this is what this word means in the Greek. And this is what it meant culturally in that time. And this is how we believe of it now. And putting that out there, then we're not giving the next generation any sort of framework.
We're giving them no apologetic.
Nothing.
There's no sexual apologetic.
Yeah.
Or whatever topic you choose to speak on. But then everyone else is.
Oh, yeah. Because the world's going to continue to be very expressive about what the narrative and the thought processes. And so it's like we have to talk about these things.
Yeah.
We have to. And because if we don't, the world is, but even the church is as well.
Exactly. Like they're going to get it from somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like you might as well, and it's uncomfortable if we're honest. That's why a lot of churches aren't talking about it, because the easy thing is to avoid it and just let somebody else have that conversation. But I think that's one thing I appreciate about what you guys do in our church. It's like, no, we're gonna have the awkward conversation because it's our responsibility. Like one day we're all gonna have to answer for what we did for our church here at Northwood.
Yeah,
right.
And it's like, let's have the tough conversation now.
Yeah,
because it matters.
If you don't, it'll be peaceful for a while, but there will be a long-term cost.
I agree. Hospitality, when you create a safe place with your presence, people may not like the boundaries that you set, but if you set them and you do the best you can, again, to love people well, they can trust you. They may not like you sometimes, but they can trust you. And I care more that people trust that I'm not trying to be fake or inauthentic.
Yeah.
I'm doing the best that I can to walk with them, give them the right, quote unquote, to listen, you are responsible for your life. And we need to work through these issues if you want to work through these issues in a way that's meaningful to you. But if you're going to say you're a Christian, you've got to think about what the scriptures mean and to be able to articulate where this conversation fits. Now, I don't know what you guys will throw this out here, but where does this conversation fit within the context of salvation? Because you can have a saving faith. Most of this conversation is actually within the context of sanctification.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so people are like, oh, you're being judgmental. It's like, no, we're trying to make judgments about the health and the unhealth and the biblical accuracy because it matters on how we live our lives.
Yep.
We're not trying to judge you. That's between you and the Lord.
Correct.
But we are making judgments about what's healthy and not healthy. And people have a really hard time with that. Like, if you really listen, so you say we post this whole thing, right? If you really listen to what I'm saying and you lean in, I'm not attacking anyone, but you can hear anything you want to hear.
Yep.
So, I think it's very important that we're having these conversations. We're nuancing the conversations and we're teaching the next generation of Christ follower to be able to do the same thing.
Yeah.
One of the things would be questions, and it ties into a conversation I actually had with a same-sex couple about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, whatever. And it would, it's like, can I be gay and be a Christian? And I would say, well, yes, you can be attracted to someone of the same sex and be a Christian. That's, it's what you do with that attraction that then determines kind of other things. And where is the line between somebody who is, let's just trade out not just attraction to the same sex, but acting on that attraction and living a homosexual lifestyle. And let's put that person right up against or next to someone who is a chronic liar or a drunk or whatever else. And at that point, their sin is equally damaging to our soul. Or sin is equally damaging to our relationship with God and all that, but different sins have different levels of effects on us and our body and our soul.
Yeah.
Sexual sin is way more impactful on us at a core level than say, I don't know, getting angry and losing your cool. And what I mean by that is there's so many things that happen whenever you're having sex with someone. Physiologically and chemically in your mind, you're connecting to someone on a deep level, and then say you're promiscuous. Well, you've just splintered your soul in some way with multiple people. That's affecting you differently in a long-term way, especially if if there's kids involved and broken marriages or whatever. Obviously, there's a lot of different applications of that. That it does affect you differently than if you said a lie. And so, but the conversation I had with him quickly was, and this is where the tension is, because some people are very against what we're talking about in, say, the homosexual community or whatever, but then some are caught between because they are convicted about their lifestyle. I'm talking about living that lifestyle, not just attraction, but actually living a lifestyle on that attraction. And I was in a conversation with a same-sex couple. They were married and came to the church. And through a series of events, we ended up meeting another pastor, and then we sat down because they had questions. And so to be honest, I was nervous to meet with them. I wasn't sure what I was walking into.
Sure.
But within seconds of sitting down, I realized that they were more nervous than I was to sit down and have the conversation about where do we stand as a church and them. And
so just to clarify, you weren't going into this conversation headhunting.
Oh gosh, no. No.
I just think that's important to even just hear sometimes,
I agree.
because I think the enemy plants seeds, and maybe because of other environments you've been in, but like the heart of a pastor is literally to help.
Yeah.
It's to shepherd.
Absolutely.
Is to help, is to love. So even just hearing you say, I was nervous going into a conversation because of the love that you have for people, I think is massive.
Yeah, I had conversations with them. And
I say the heart of a healthy shepherd, a healthy pastor. I would agree with you. And Jordan going into this is a healthy pastor.
Yeah.
I think absolutely.
And we sat down and I ended up being the one who had to kind of help them feel comfortable because I realized, and then I heard their story. And at 5 years of age, one of them was like, oh, I was 5 and I knew I was gay.
Yeah.
From the get-go, I've never been attracted to a female in my life.
Right.
I've always liked dresses. I was always that kid. But I was in a church that was extremely against that. He said, so my whole life, upbringing, he's like, I knew that I was different than the other guys. And there was nothing I could do about it, but I also couldn't even say anything about it because I knew what that would end up being.
Yeah.
And sure enough, whenever they did finally say something at about, I think it was 15 or 16, it blew up. It blew up the family. It was really, really bad. Another one of them had a similar story. A lot of church hurt. It was not handled well, and there was also some abuse wrapped in there. It was anyway. We sat there and we talked, and I heard their story, and so we went from story to then, okay, what does the Bible say? And I'm just kind of summarizing it really quick, a big conversation like that. And at the end of the day, I said, this is how we interpret the scriptures around these things. And again, I'm just jumping to the scripture. It took a long time to get to like some sort of rule or doctrinal conversation. I mean, we literally cried together. There was a lot of pain, but when it got to the doctrinal part, I stated what we believed. I said, now you could still come. I mean, we don't have like a wall built up for people that we, don't agree with.
Right.
Sunday morning it's a public place, involvement in certain things in our church. There's some differences there, and I explained that there, and they understood it probably based upon their experience of what church they were in. They were like, hey, it's great that we can even show up and not, be blocked at the door. Yeah. But anyway, got to a point I said, but listen, there are other churches in our area who are affirming. And I obviously disagree biblically with that, but as a church community, you could go to those churches and be way more involved. And I said, and I mean, it's no hard feelings. This isn't personal, And they looked at each other and they laughed and they looked back and they said, we don't want to go to those churches because those churches don't tell us the truth. And they said that. I to fell out my chair. And I was like, now I'm confused, And come to find out the Holy Spirit had been convicting them about that's why they were there too. It was the Holy Spirit was dealing with them about what the word says. And they're like, no, we know what the word says. And that's why we're so conflicted, but we love one another. And I say all that to say, and I still am in contact with one of the guys. It's a great guy, He's a great guy, but it's very nuanced. It's very, and it's a tangled conversation. And whenever people bring into those conversations, those beliefs, like we've talked about, if in marriage you bring in beliefs about people, it damages that relationship. Oh, well, all women do this. All men do this. I can't trust my husband because, I couldn't trust my dad. And you're bringing that back into that conversation, to that marriage. You're already at a deficit. Yeah. And I think that's the same thing that happens in these conversations is people are bringing pain or anger or frustration into the conversation, and nobody can actually talk as genuine people because they're assuming, oh, you're against me or I'm against you. Good. And it's hard. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it is. I think it's important to say out loud where we are in our convictions and affirm that we genuinely love people.
Oh, yeah.
We want to be present with people, create a space for people, walk with people how they'll let us walk with them.
It doesn't always mean that it's going to end at the same point, like in this place of agreement. But again, agreement is not the same thing as validation.
Right.
As understanding.
Right.
I can understand you and still disagree with you, but it doesn't mean I have to be mad at you and hate you and hope for the worst for you. That's,
I can acknowledge and validate the experience, but the meaning and the source of that meaning being leveraged to the source being leveraged to give those experiences meaning is where we differ.
Yeah.
Right.
And
I think that's something that I appreciate about you and just getting to know you. You love people. You and your practice, it's built on love for God, but it's built on loving people. It really is. Yep. Maybe share a little bit about company resource, like
the Well Clinic, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The website there is mywellclinic.com. And you can go there. I mean, we'd see and work with all kinds of things. We're trauma informed, but we're growth oriented. We've got medical providers, social workers, neuropsychologists, like clinical psychologists, all that. mywellco.life, mywellco for My Well Community, mywellco.life is the page for all of our resources. So you can go there, check out all of the resources from blogs to my book, Values-Based Parenting, is on there. And then myrhythms.life is the landing page for an online platform of just ever-growing masterclasses that help people foster holistic self-care.
Yeah.
And that is going to be, it just got launched, and it is a core strategy for guiding people into hope, wellness, and life for us. We will add to that indefinitely. If you go in and you buy that now, you'll have it, you'll own it indefinitely. It'll be a one-time fee. It'll be yours. And everything we add, you'll keep. We'll eventually probably go to a subscription base. But right now, you buy it and it's yours.
That's awesome.
So get in quick.
Yeah, get in quick. Are you on social media?
mywellco.life. Yep. Great. Instagram's mywellco.life. Facebook, mywellco.life. I'll try to keep it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Understandable.
Themed and easy.
Great.
But I would go to Instagram. In fact, Instagram, mywellco.life, we're about to open a subscription. So it'll be super cheap. And there'll be a lot of value that you can get for super, super cheap on Instagram.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, this has been great, man.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Guys, thank you.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Appreciate you.
Maybe we'll run it back. We'll run it back sometime.
Let's do it.
Run it back and I hear some more thoughts about the aliens,
Heck yeah.
And all that. So
I know we went in, bro.
Oh man. Yeah. That's how it's got to be for our subscribers and I heard you say subscribers.
Subscribers, our Jedi Masters. That's right. Peace.